All right, thanks everyone for taking some time in your afternoon to join us for another session of our technical enablement webinar series. We have a great topic today because AI is kind of the behemoth in the IT space. And frankly, a lot of people talk about compute and GPUs, but storage is just as important. And we have Doug Schofield from IBM to talk to us about AI and why IBM storage has the platform to help drive innovations with AI. So, Doug, take it away.
Wonderful. Compute. Who needs that stuff? Get out of here. We're going to talk about storage today. All right. So thank you all for buying out some time today. I know how hard it is to do that. And hopefully we'll make this worth your while. So you start talking about AI, and we've kind of tried to frame it in the title, what it is, so on and so forth. But even with that, there's just so many definitions, so many pieces to this conversation. So I kind of want to just put some guardrails around what we're going to talk about today. So by way of introduction, my name is Doug Schofield. I am the storage partner technical specialist, and I cover, amongst others, Ingram Micro. And I'm very delighted to come here in conjunction with Ingram, one of my favorite groups of people on the entire planet, to talk to you about AI and why you guys want to get more educated on exactly how we go to market with this stuff, who we should be talking to, why you should care, why they should care. So let's kind of just jump right into it. Um, I want to start by just framing the conversation about what we're talking about when we're talking about AI for this session. And then we'll go into the solutions, and every one of these solutions have applicability and scope that goes far, far beyond the AI space. But I'm going to try anyway to focus on the elements that you want to be aware of and communicating to your customers when it comes to how do you handle different pieces of the AI challenge from a data services perspective. So that's kind of what today is all about. This is absolutely interactive. I've got folks monitoring. Actually, forgive me. I'm not a Zoom veteran. Is there a chat area here that folks can put questions in?
Yeah, there sure is. If they hover over the screen at the bottom, there's a chat function.
Wonderful. So let's use that. And then I trust Mark and Cheryl to flag me if something is relative to the particular topic that I'm talking about. If it's a generic question that doesn't relate to what I'm talking about at the moment, I'm going to ask that we hold those chatted questions till the end, and we'll go through any and all of them. I don't anticipate coming anywhere near an hour in my comments, so we'll have plenty of time at the end to talk about anything that you guys want to talk about, whether I covered it or not, in the AI space. So let's kind of handle it that way. All right, so we'll go in there, and then at the end we've got all kinds of wonderful links and information for you to guys get super smart about this right away. Actually, I mentioned it to the team before we came into the call proper, but I'll mention it now because it's in my brain. Two of the solutions we're going to talk about today are IBM Storage CEPH and IBM Fusion. All right, there is a wonderful 2-day workshop scheduled for mid-May. I want to say it's the 14th and 15th. Don't hold me to that. I'll make sure I'll make sure on those dates. But it's a deep dive workshop style introduction to Ceph and Fusion. If you're interested in attending, it's in Durham, North Carolina. Did I say that? Okay. Anyway, I've said it now. We would love to nominate you. And oh, by the way, I'm going to be there at that because I want to deepen my knowledge. Fusion, I'm getting there, but Ceph is still, one of those things that I just want to have better detail on. And so I'll be there as well. If you want to join me, send your information to Mark or Cheryl or Ryan or myself, and we will nominate you. I know there's seats still available because we got emailed on it earlier today. Anyway, okay, let's go right into this. And let's kind of start at the top and work into the guardrails around this question from the perspective of this session. So when we start talking about who's focused on AI in the world, this is an embarrassingly short, heavily focusing on the sexy ones, the people the names people know in the AI space. And let's face it, there are literally hundreds and hundreds more companies and entities that are building AI applications, building AI interfaces, and they're all doing all of these things in a variety of different contexts through a variety of different prisms. So let's start by putting tighter controls on this conversation. Are we here to talk about AI? No. Is IBM an AI company? No. When we change that conversation to AI for business, this list gets a lot shorter. IBM has been focused on the particular challenges and requirements of AI from a business context for decades. Nobody else can really say that, not with the same credibility that IBM can. So we are focused. The reason that we're involved with AI is to make business better at delivering content and capability in that space. Right? We may not be as sexy, as a chat GPT or anything like that, or um, Copilot. I've spent the better part of whole days lately. I'm working on a new home theater at home, and I've been having this really cool conversation with Copilot, and it acts like a person. It's really neat. Okay. But we're not talking about that today. We're talking about AI for business, and there are unique challenges there. And the other piece that we're not talking about today is the whole front end of that conversation, the whole application layer, right? Which has tons and tons of challenges when it comes to making an AI application business ready. So hate speech and bias and all the things that we know in our multiple conversations about AI couldn't be any more true on that front end. Okay. That is where most of these opportunities begin. And that's an important first message that we want to deliver here, because that's not the piece we're going to talk about today. What are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about the relative waves of activity and where it's at these days. We know this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide. We already know this stuff. We are well into the generative AI phase of IT and business acceleration, for lack of a better term. All right. We don't have to tell people, gosh, have you ever considered AI? How often do you find yourself saying that with your customers? Almost never now. I mean, everybody is working on their solution, and it's moving out of the fun toy phase, and it's moving into the business critical phase. It is becoming the face of more and more organizations worldwide. It is central to the success of the business. That's the first thing we want to agree to. What's going on for challenges from a business leader perspective? We know that our data is a critical asset. So we've got all kinds of publicly accessible AI capabilities. The way we add the value to that is to bring our own data, our own proprietary expertise, and add it to the stuff that's in the public domain to create a cumulative new thing in the world. All right. So I want to be a disruptor. I want to be an innovator. And I want to be recognized as such by my user community, by the analysts, all of those things. How do I get there? It's my data that is absolutely crucial to this conversation. So I need, as a matter of course, the ability to access and present that data, not just to my end users, but to my entire development organization as I'm building these models, as I'm training these models, as I'm going through the iterations of that. And there's all kinds of data related implications to that statement. It's a great bullet point on a slide. But if we're not really thinking like that and developing the solutions that we're putting in front of our customers like that, we're setting them up for failure. Today, AI data, it's ADA. AI data, I shortened it. That's a new thing. That's going to become such a thing. Anyway, AI data is all over the place. It's out on the edge. It's in multiple data centers. It's in multiple clouds. I need to be able to normalize that data and understand where it is, how I access it, exactly when I need it, and in what context. That's a showstopper. If I haven't got that figured out, I'm not going to succeed. All right. High performance. Do I have to go any further? I mean, if I've put in a solution that's good enough and my competitor has tricked out their solution and they come to market 2 weeks, a month ahead of me because they got through 10 iterations of building their models and got to a model that was safe and acceptable to put in front of my customers, a month ahead of them, I'm done. I'm out. All right, that's the kind of immediacy that our customers need. If I'm not creating a solution that takes that into account and I'm not having that conversation as part of the sales process, I'm probably in some trouble there. GPUs. Son of a gun, NVIDIA has not come out with the free GPU sales play these days. It's expensive. These big DGX systems that are being put out there on the compute layer and other very, very fast GPU laden compute level resources. If I've got good enough storage behind that, I probably just wasted a ton of money on some really high-end compute. I need storage that when it is being called on, that can be every bit as fast, every bit as efficient, every bit as low latency as that compute resource can be, so I can feed it as fast as the compute can take it. Right, that's important. All right, storage costs are growing, and what are my CFOs looking for? They're looking for something that's budgetable. Give me some sort of reasonable guideline as to how much I'm going to spend now and how much I'm going to spend down the road. I need to understand where data is going to live. Is it going to be a private cloud? Is it going to be hybrid? Is it going to be mostly public? Each one of those has their own cost considerations. I have functional needs and wants there, but I've also got budgetary needs and wants. So if I can't easily define what I'm building as far as a solution, what it's going to cost me today, what it's going to cost me down the road, that can be problematic for a business too. So those are some really good starting points as to how to get into this mindset and how we're going to do this. Now, a lot of you may be infrastructure sellers. And so a lot of you may not yet have the warm and fuzzies about having these conversations because most of the impetus for it is happening upstream of the infrastructure guys. That's challenging and scary. It means I'm going to have to talk to new people. I'm going to hit that in a second and talk a little about personas. But the truth of the matter is, if we're not getting out of our comfort zone and getting in somebody else's face and making sure that data services and infrastructure is every bit a major from the get-go part of my AI experience, there's a real good chance we're going to get entirely frozen out of that deal. And that's bad news, because if our competitors come in and solve that problem for us, guess what? They're the people that came in and solved my major problem. Whose phone am I going to pick up the next time somebody calls me for a solution? We need to get better at getting outside of our IT rank and file into the other areas of the business that care most about this conversation. All right, so let's get to actual solutions here. So this is IBM's idea of what AI ought to be from a data services perspective, at least IBM storages. You know, depending on what group of IBM you might be talking about, they might have a different conversation. But here's the key elements that we're going to talk about today. So IBM Storage for Hybrid Cloud is led by our IBM Fusion solution. A bit of exciting news in the way of previews of coming attractions here is that in not too long a time, Ingram Micro is going to have one of these pieces of equipment in their data center in Buffalo. And we'll be able to set up use cases so that you can use these things for the various solutions, AI included, as you're talking to your customers. You want to do a demo? Ingram's going to have the ability and the expertise to help you with that. So you've made a really good choice. First things first, with Ingram as your distributor, they are very, very committed to providing the best support for their user community, their partner community, as far as anybody I work with. So keep that in mind. But Fusion, we'll talk about what these things are in a minute. My favorite term for Fusion is that it is the easy button for OpenShift. Right? We all know about OpenShift. We all know about the value of containerization. All right. And that term, the easy button for OpenShift, didn't come from the product team, didn't come from the marketing team. It came from North America's biggest customer, who happens, oh, by the way, to be an Ingram Micro customer. So, you know, when we start talking about this with our clients, our customers, we can go out there with confidence that people are already using this quite successfully. And it is the most elegant solution for presenting OpenShift Kubernetes applications and environments to the business that exists on the planet. We'll come to that. We'll come to that as we go on. On the data and AI side, we've got storage scale system and storage scale software. This, my friends, if you're not already familiar, and I'm sure quite many of you already are. This is the guy you go to when the customer says, I have a need for speed. And we'll go into that in a little bit, in more tangible, measurable context. But basically, there is nothing on the planet. If I need the fastest, most economical, the most sustainable solution on the planet, density per terabyte, performance per terabyte, all of those things, nothing better than storage scale. And then we've got storage Ceph, which from our perspective at IBM is kind of the new kid on the block. It's recently been made part of the storage portfolio. It has been a Red Hat solution for years. It is, in its way, probably maybe even more exciting than the other guys, because we think that this is going to be very consumable on a lot of levels. It can go very small. You can deploy this on what's called a storage ready node. So it's a ready to go hardware appliance that you can just wheel in. It's got Ceph on it, and you're up and running in no time. And starting small and growing immensely large. It's kind of the little brother of scale from the perspective of latency. It's probably not quite as fast. It probably can't keep up with scale from a sheer speed perspective. But as far as functionality, sometimes the use case doesn't really need that as an ultimate consideration. And if I can save some costs and I can deploy it in different modes, then I can deploy it and scale, it might be of some value to a lot of our customers. So we need to be good at understanding what it does and where it applies. And we're going to talk today in each of these cases. We're not going to go into the macro, although there's slides on the macro for each in this deck so that you've got them for your own purposes. We're going to try to stay focused on the AI related aspects of this. All right. So kind of to go back on what I was talking about a minute ago, we want to be able to deliver all of these solutions in a form factor that matches the customer's business need. So I can deliver all these things as a software only solution. I can deliver them as a hybrid cloud solution. And I can have private cloud capability on all of these guys without going outside the firewall. And then I have the traditional infrastructure, all right, which is it just rolls in on the iron. And we all know how to do that stuff. If we're infrastructure sellers, that's our warm and fuzzies. We understand that stuff. So this, whatever the customer says the right model for me is, you got it covered with each of these three solutions. All right. Now, we talked about personas a minute ago. This is where we get a little bit outside of the people that we normally will be talking to. So we talk to an IT infrastructure person all the time. All right. The thing is that you'll find, and you probably already are finding this, when you start talking about AI or anything related to containers or OpenShift or any of that stuff, you kind of get the blank stare sometimes from those guys. No, nobody's come to us for that. That's not unusual. A lot of these initiatives have their genesis outside of the traditional IT rank and file. So I might be talking to developers. I might be talking to, my next role here as a data scientist. Or I might be talking to line of business people that are much more in tune with what the business is thinking in this AI space than the infrastructure person might be. All right. It's eventually going to roll to them. The IT group, they're standing at the bottom of every hill with a big old catcher's mitt. So everything somebody else thinks of it would be a really cool whiz bang thing to do, it eventually gets to them. All right. So they're always going to be in there at some point. But as I mentioned early, it's important for us to be part of this conversation from the outset, because if we're not, somebody else will be. All right. Somebody's going to bring up the topic of where is this stuff going to live and does it meet all of the enterprise's guidelines and requirements? All right. So data scientists, what do they want? They want to be able to build their models and train them and do the iterations and the inferencing and all that stuff. And don't tell me about backup, and don't tell me about networking, and don't tell me about how I've got this mirrored so that if I have a catastrophic failure, I can get back up and running. They don't know about that stuff. They want that to be behind the black curtain. But they are key influencers in picking solutions that are going to be right for the business. So we want to introduce ourselves to those people, understand, and they may not be called data scientists in your client's business. They may have a different role. Ask around. Who are the lead people working on your AI strategy? And yeah, there'll be a lot of management level people on that thing, but there's also going to be a lot of technical people that are heavily involved, not just in the building of it, but in the influence part of this. And of course, the business leaders, they are the ones with the vision. What are we trying to get to? What are the outcomes that we are trying to meet here? And I love that whole notion. Stop managing to features and functions. Even stop managing to solutions. Manage to outcomes. That's what the business leaders care about. And oh, by the way, another important to ingratiate yourself with the business leaders, they've got that super double secret pocket in the budget that maybe the IT rank and file doesn't have access to. And this solution will be one of those ones that has strategic importance to the business and probably is going to have a little extra money set aside for the considerations for it. So that's why you want to be visible to and understood by the business leaders here. Some different people that maybe, if you're an account exec, you're probably talking to some of these people. If you're a brand specialist, you might not be, and you need to be. Okay. All right. So that's kind of a high level framing of what we're trying to talk about today. Let's talk about the solutions. IBM Storage Scale. A lot of our partners, even if they're not doing other things, they're doing Scale because Scale is just one of those things that's kind of the grand central station where everything that an IT organization needs, which by extension is everything the AI group needs, happens in one place. So a million things here. I'm not going to talk about them all. Point being is that no matter what the customer has a need for, if they need it to run fast, if they need to be able to scale it upwardly and increase my capacity, increase my performance, this is the guy that can do that. We talked about the fact that data needs to be universally accessible. What a lot of customers will do in those situations where they've got a lot of data that's not living topologically where it needs to be able to be functional for everybody that needs to see it, they'll start creating copies and stick them here and here and here. And at the end, I've got to kind of reconcile it all, make sure I haven't messed up anybody's permissions or rights or the data itself. And then I put it back in its location. And that is a very cumbersome and usually prohibitive amount of activity. Well, with Scale, firstly, it's going to present all my data that's living there in a single global namespace. So geographically, no matter where I am, as long as from a network perspective, I'm attached, I can see all the data. And then I have a capability called active file management, which allows me to cache subsets of my data in places that are more advantageous for the people that need to access it, while maintaining all of the rights and the privileges and all of the data itself in a format that the business wants it to. And that is a very, very big deal when it comes to AI, because like I say, my people that are needing access to this stuff to do the work they need to do, they may not be sitting in 4 contiguous cubbies in one place in one city. They may be all over the place, and they may have entirely distinctive roles that need to collaborate on these things. Well, Scale gives you the ability to bring that in so that everybody can see everything they need to without a lot of administrative muss and fuss. All right, lots and lots of capabilities here. I'm not going to talk about them now. I'm not going to spend time here, but this one I would review if you go in and talk to Scale, because here's the truth. Okay, AI may be the reason you get Scale through the door with customer X, but oh, by the way, once they've had 3 months or 6 months to work with this bad boy, somebody's going to say, son of a gun, this is great for AI, but man, this would be good for other use case X that we're doing another way that's not as good as this is. This is the gift that keeps on giving. Understand what this can do to get it in the door for this use case, but then understand where you can come back and say, hey, had you thought about doing this for this database or this initiative that I know you've got going on? This will make that whole thing scream. All right, keep it in mind. Like I say, it's just in here for your purposes going forward. I'm not going to spend a ton of time. And same thing here. The idea here is that I can, I'm going to skip to this because I'm going to cover this in the next 3 or 4 slides, what the gist of this message is. But again, I wanted you to have this in the deck that we're going to provide to you so you can use it as you see fit when you turn around and start talking to customers. And oh, by the way, when that happens, if you're not comfortable with any part of this, please tap your IBM brethren on the shoulder, tap your Ingram brethren on the shoulder. We'll make sure you have a resource to go in arm in arm with you so that when the questions get trickier, somebody's there to help you with it. Okay. All right. So to achieve the goals that AI requires here, we've defined the 4 A's. The 4 A's. I'm the fonts here now, but anyway, let's go into them one at a time. All right. So data access, and I love that. Like this slide is focused on outcomes. I want to be able to provide data access so that globally dispersed teams can collaborate on data regardless of the attributes and the aspects of the data. All right, that is a huge, huge thing and a huge showstopper in a lot of AI environments. Is that, man, oh man, how am I going to get everything where it needs to be so that everybody involved can work on it? That's the first thing we get. Okay, hold on, I got to move. I can't read my slides because there's big old things in the way. Data acceleration. All right, I need to be able to. We talked about the caching of backend storage systems. That was the active file management capability here. The ability to make it very, very quick to stage my data in such a way that I can then use it to help the biz. Okay, data abstraction. We talked about the global namespace so that the physical data may be in point X, but I can have a virtual version of it in point, A, B, and C, and everybody can do what they need. When it's done, it goes away. I don't have to do the heavy housekeeping associated with that. It's a big deal. All right. Lots of people buy Scale just for that. The ability to stop creating 8 million copies of my data. And then data assurance, the whole notion of resilience. All right, so when we talk about the infrastructure that supports storage scale, it is the exact same, well, essentially the same hardware that supports our flash system environment, most notably our flash system 9500, the larger device. It's basically the same device, same chassis, same flash core modules with all of the anomaly detection for watching for cyber events, that sort of thing. But instead of putting storage virtualize as the software, which is the software-defined underpinning of our flash systems group, we put in storage scale. So you've got all of that data assurance and capabilities that you have for that device with this as well, because it's the same device. All right, so that's important as far as being able to recover quickly. All right. I put this in real quick because a lot of people say, well, that's great. You talk about all these slides. Are you guys really doing this? We are using storage scale as the storage underpinning for the development and training of our AI large language model known as Granite. Originally, we did this with Cloud Object Storage, a great solution in its own right. We won't spend any time talking about it today, but one of the things that it doesn't do at tremendous scale is low latency. Well, as the Granite became bigger and bigger and bigger and needed to be faster and faster and faster in development-wise, we found that we kind of needed to migrate to scale because it has that ability kind of natively. In fact, most of the large supercomputing environments in the world use scale as its storage backend because it can have hundreds of GPUs associated with it. It can feed data as fast as the fastest systems can take it. So that's why I had this in here. Again, it's a good thing when you're talking to customers to say, you know what? Yeah, IBM isn't just saying this, they use it. Okay. This is an important point, back to the need for speed. We understand this if we're infrastructure sellers, the need to take periodic snapshots. Well, in the AI world, that is absolutely crucial because there's so much going on with the training and inferencing of models out there. It is a very time-consuming, data generating process. So at periodic intervals, well-organized AI shops will do what they call checkpointing, which is basically snapshots to come in and say, all right, I'm safe here. So if I've got a catastrophic failure in 6 hours, I can get back to here instead of 32 hours before here, that sort of thing. So it's a very important conversation to be ready to have with our AI customers because they'll already be doing this or at least know what this is. Well, as you look at this, how we perform versus our key competitors, even our lower end, the scale system 3500, which is kind of the 6000's little brother, performs far better than the majority of our competitors. And that DDN entry on the second one, to get to that performance, they've got 5x the space, 5x the heat and cooling concerns, 20x the network connections to get to that level of performance. We are the most elegant storage solution for AI on the planet. Go into a customer confident that that is the case. Okay, that's the key elements of scale. Okay, we're good for time. All right, so let's talk a little bit about CEPH. All right, CEPH it's got a lot of the same basic value proposition as scale, it lets you start at a much, much smaller entry point, but it can get as big as anybody's ever going to need in the context of what we're talking about today as far as AI. Um, Allows you to create very, very modular scalability, so very horizontal. The nature of the scalability of this guy, but he can get really, really big if that's what you need. He also supports file block and objects. And I don't think I said that in so many words because I kind of glossed over that, but both of those solutions allow us to do that. And it is entirely a software defined solution. So it can be delivered as software only. It can be delivered on the storage ready nodes we talked about a few minutes ago. It can be delivered as a hybrid cloud, up and down experience between the cloud, that sort of thing. And that is going to be a big conversation relative to what our customers, where they expect their data to live. So there's nothing here that's a limitation from CEPH's perspective. Okay. Now, another nice thing about CEPH, and this has been relatively recently announced, is that we can do IBM storage CEPH as a service. So instead of making a capital purchase here, I can actually do a subscription model where I only have to purchase what the amount of CEPH that I'm actually using, and it is always available and managed by IBM experts. So it is living inside the firewall on-prem in a few different form factors relative to what you need. One of them being storage ready nodes. And it is just basically a conduit back to IBM, who takes care of the daily care and feeding of your CEPH environment. So it's a nice thing, and it matches what a lot of our customers are saying, the way they want to consume. I can say consume storage, but it's really consume anything. It's very important to them that they have this option. And so you'll see more and more of that going on. But CEPH has just recently announced this for their solution. So anyway, here's the basic concept of it. It's a really nice, clean slide to put in front of a customer. 24/7 remote support. No updates, fixes that anybody needs to worry about. It's similar in that respect to Storage Insights. You go home on a Friday, it looks like thing X, and you come in on Monday, it looks like something entirely different. I didn't have to do a doggone thing. Same thing here. So it's an IBM managed environment. Pay for what you consume, right? So it is there's two different form factors. Well, two different usage cases that you can apply to this. A performance tier, which starts at a much lower capacity floor. So I may need a smaller amount that needs to run a little faster. And so when I relate it as far as a latency perspective to scale, it's probably not a fair comparison because scale is just a monster from a performance perspective. But this is no slouch either. So it's not like you can only use it for backups and things like that. You can use it for primary operations of all sorts. All right. So there's that performance tier, and then there's a capacities tier, which has a lower floor because by its nature, you're looking for cheap and deep. So you can consume it either way, and it's available in 3, 4, and 5 year terms. All right. Relative to AI, under the how to get started with CEPH, start over on the right here. When we start talking about the modern data lake, all right, so I may want to do a data lake house deployment, which can be a marriage of storage CEPH and watsonx.data, for instance, that becomes the primary data repository against which all of my AI-based operations, my building of my models, and so on and so forth happens. All right. It may not be the place where data is living when I'm actually actively working on it and doing my training of my model. That may be more of a CEPH. I'm combining solutions all day long. CEPH is now scale and CEPH together. But anyway, that may be more of a scale task. But there's lots of time, in fact, the majority of time, where I'm not doing activity against a particular data set, that this is a great place for it to live. All right, so that's where it plays in. And I've got a slide at the end that kind of brings this together, and it might help it click for you as far as how this all kind of fits together when we start having a conversation with a customer. But CEPH, like I say, I'm not going to spend much more time here on CEPH, but we think that of all the solutions we're talking about today, this is going to be the most ubiquitous relative to who's going to want it and why. There's probably the broadest set of use cases and the lowest level of entry points that we think there's going to be thousands of customers that as we get better and better at telling the story and making the completeness of what CEPH is obvious to people, we think a lot of people are going to sign up for it. Anyway, so CEPH is kind of like almost a previews of coming attractions, but it definitely plays into the AI space. Okay, so here we are to my boy. This is my personal favorite solution these days, because I think that this solution is about to take off like a rocket in coming quarters and years. All right, so there's lots and lots of places where Fusion can buy. There's the simple thing to remember, the one thing you can take away from this if you want to have your antenna up. If your customer says the word OpenShift, the next word out of your mouth should be Fusion. We can run Fusion anywhere that OpenShift can run. All right, on the edge, in one or multiple data centers, one or multiple clouds, all of that stuff. And it gives you all of the functionality and all of the back end capability that the business needs, while at the same time becoming as nearly close to invisible as it can in the operation. Let me give you, for instance, why I say that. This very, very large customer in North America that uses more than a couple of dozen of these Fusion devices, Fusion hyperconverged appliances. We asked them, what does the storage team think of Fusion? And the answer was, they don't touch it ever. That's how easy this is to work with once it's implemented the day-to-day. The people that need to do the development, do development. The people that need to do data science and all of the machine learning and the building of models, those iterations, they do that. None of them have to touch the back-end data services element. It just happens. And there's an admin that kind of keeps track and brings in the right person on the odd chance that something goes wrong. But it is a very simple solution to implement. You wheel it in, it's in there at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning, and by midday Tuesday, it's running. It's available to the business to do what they want to do with it. So it's a very quick to value solution. So what is it? Okay. So again, if we're talking about OpenShift, if we're talking about Fusion, if we're talking about any other containerization platform, then the triage is done there too. We don't support it, not yet. All right, so it's an OpenShift only. The good news is roughly half of enterprises out there these days are using OpenShift as their containerization method of choice. So it's not like, oh, gee, every once in a while I'll run to an OpenShift people. It'll be a significant percentage that will definitely have an ear, or sometimes we can even start that conversation if they haven't made a final decision as regards how they want to do it, because OpenShift is containerization for the enterprise. All right, more so than any other solution out there. But as we mentioned, it can run strictly as a software only on virtual machines. It can run in the cloud, and it can run on our Fusion HCI appliance. And it can start relatively small, even that guy. All right, it can have it basically has a bunch of x86 compute nodes in here, and it can start with 6. That's the minimum. And in a single frame, you can have up to 20. So you can still start kind of little, and it's got redundant networking and redundant compute and all of that stuff, the way you'd expect a hyperconverged appliance. It is the only hyperconverged appliance on the planet that is purpose-built for OpenShift. We've got other people whose names I won't mention off the top of my head that do hyperconverged and want to tell you that you should run OpenShift there. They are a lot of overkill. They do a lot of things that OpenShift doesn't need, which provides extra cost and maintenance that you don't need to do as Mr. Customer. This is very much a bare metal setup here that gets you where you need to be. In fact, here's kind of a model of what the inside of an HCI looks like. So I've got my compute, my storage, my network. I've got Kubernetes. I've got OpenShift laying on the top, and I've got my virtualized applications and my containerized applications. You notice what's missing, hyperconverged aficionados? There's no hypervisor here. It's not required. Can I run virtual machines here? 100%. In fact, that's a huge play for Fusion, is that we can do OpenShift virtualization natively in here. And it can be a migration target for those customers that are having pain with the current Broadcom situation. Now, that's a topic for another conversation, but I at least wanted to throw that out there. As regards what we're talking about today, Watson X absolutely adores Fusion. And we've got lots of customers that have successful deployments of Watson X on a Fusion HCI platform. All right, it's also got this control tower function, which is relatively new, and that is the ability to spin up multiple clusters and easily manage, create, retire, segregate, all of the normal housekeeping associated with spinning up OpenShift clusters. It's a very, very simple process, and it allows also for easy remote access to the box. So it is a very elegant solution for containerization in general and AI in particular. All right. It also allows for the installation of a GPU node, and I forget the total number of GPU cards you can have in it, but you can get pretty big just with this before you have to start thinking about, okay, do I need hundreds of GPUs? In which case, I'm probably looking at a scale solution. But I can probably do a lot with this one before I ever get to that. If I've got a small to medium business, this might be all they ever need for their AI environment. All right. There's also CSI capabilities, so I can tie in like a flash system to this as well if I need more raw capacity than what we can provide in box here. All right. So we've got lots of capabilities both within the box and immediately adjacent to the box to give you what you need here. Okay. This is the idea. All right. And this notion really kind of extends in a greater sense to all of what we're talking about today. These are the things that, we start off with this pilot. We're trying to build a new application. We're trying to be disruptive. We're trying to be innovative. We're trying to come into the market and do something new that they've never seen before. And that's a great thing while we're in pilot. But eventually you're going to move it from pilot to production. And when it comes in production, all of the capabilities that the business expects out of any other solution that's on the floor are now an absolutely crucial part of this new application, because let's face it, nobody's doing these as pet projects anymore. These are all mission critical, highly visible initiatives. And if I can't provide the persistence, the resiliency, the security, the mobility, then they're going to say, take it back and bring it back to me when it's ready. Well, Fusion comes out the door with all that stuff already in, and I added on. The fifth part of the Fusion 5 is cataloging, the ability to start curating my data on box as part of the deployment of Fusion. That is an absolutely crucial element in a conversation that your data scientist ears will perk up on the minute you mention it. It's already built into the solution that we can do that sort of thing with Fusion. All right. Some of the examples as to why people move to Fusion. None of these use cases are specific to AI, but it covers different categories that you might hit in objections. Okay. So cost. All right. There's the large bank in North America that's our largest customer has now this publishing 29 racks, and that's about to go up. And they experienced a 70% total cost of ownership improvement over Nutanix. Right. So that could be another solution that you're going to run into in your conversations about AI. Understand that we can deliver a much more elegant and cost-effective solution than those guys. And we are designed for purpose instead of being, yeah, we'll put that round peg on our square hole, and we'll just smack it with a really big mallet to make it work. All right. NetApp, it's not even close. Performance, we will smoke them all day long. They are trying to play in a place where they should not play. But the performance of Fusion is a key element, especially when you add that GPU node capability. And then Portworx. Portworx is a nice little solution. It is a software-only solution, and it works gloriously well in pilot. It works gloriously well in small to intermediate use cases productionally. But if your solution that your customer is putting together is more successful than they anticipated, which will happen often, they're going to outgrow it. And that's why we replaced Portworx at this particular customers. They got to a point where it just couldn't keep up. If you have a choice as to whether you're going to put something in place that works today and tomorrow. Don't be cheering against the success of your solution that you've architected for the customer. Right? That's And like, once again, I don't know. It's not my way to beat up, every one of these things has its place where it plays the best. But when we're talking about AI, when we're talking about the ability to manage a containerized workspace, Fusion is superior to all of these for the reasons that I mentioned earlier. Okay. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one, I don't think. It is one of the biggest competitors you'll face out there is the fact that Red Hat can be deployed without buying any of this stuff. And that's the truth. Everything Fusion does, could they do it themselves? Yep, sure can. Whose neck are they going to choke when something goes wrong? All right. And how many hours and hours and hours and hours of effort is going to be required to do it, to train up on it, to understand it. And then heaven forbid the person that designed it, gets promoted or gets moved to another company or whatever. And the people that take their place may not understand the full methodology that was used to develop. This is, I hesitate to use the word turnkey. All right. That's a little condescending. But if I'm playing the closest to the pin game, on the conversation of turnkey, there's nothing more so than Fusion. It does what it does, and I don't generally have to think about it a whole heck of a lot. I can think about the business aspects of what I'm trying to do to develop my application and get it out there faster than the other guys. All right. And make sure that it's always going to perform the way I expect it to. So anyway, just again, this is for your own purposes, depending on the objections of your particular customer. All right. Now, put this all together, all this stuff I just said, all this I just hit you with. What does it mean in the AI universe? Okay, every one of these things has a play. Every one of these things could have a play at a single customer, not always. I mean, because they may have other solutions for pieces of this, and that's perfectly fine. We're going to play very nicely with other children. So I've got my Fusion device that's out there that's allowing for the development of my applications and my models and my various use cases. And I'm doing my data inferencing there, and I'm doing all my fine tuning of my models there, that kind of thing. And then when the need is, all right, I've got a massive data set that I need to do some model training against, then the ball flips over to storage scale, and it does its thing with all the snapshotting, all of the checkpointing in between to make sure that I'm getting there at the fastest possible time with protection that ensures that I'm not wasting time and having going back to the beginning, which puts me behind my competitors. All right. And then I've got Ceph out there that says when that data is at rest, it's not being used for something. I've got a place to put that stuff that understands the context in which watsonx is using my data and feeds it back into the system as it is needed. I've got a lot of ability to set up different topologies there, multiple cluster environments. In fact, Ceph loves hundreds of clusters. So, you can have a lot of granularity as far as how you set that up. And as it also mentions here that the ability to include tape, which scale opens up the ability to do. So I can use tape potentially as a data tier for my truly cold AI related data that I'm going to need maybe in a year or 18 months or 2 years or whatever. If I'm going back to do some postmortem on how I've set these things up over time, I can have that stuff sit on tape, and it's part of the whole solution here. This is the sort of thing I can put in front of a customer and say, do these needs match what you anticipate when it comes to building your AI infrastructure, right? To make the sum total of all of this is it's behind a great big black curtain. I need these functionalities. And, factor in things like backup, the boringest of all. But I'll tell you what, that's where a lot of these solutions trip up, as I'm just not ready to back it up in context. Fusion will do that. It will absolutely, you never have to think about, did I get everything I need to be able to recover? Because Fusion knows, right? And it will do those backups for you behind the scenes. Don't have to think about it. That is a summary of what IBM can do data services wise for AI customers. And I know that I keep talking about watsonx. watsonx is not the only AI thing on the planet. If it runs on OpenShift, whatever it is, we can build a model like this for it. All right. That's an important thing. I mean, we're IBM. We talk about Watson. proudly because it's probably the best solution of its type out there. But if your customer's not using Watson, we still have a conversation. If it's something other than OpenShift, it gets a little fuzzier. But keep that in mind. Okay, so for more information, you got more information than you ever wanted in your entire life. If you're familiar with our seismic portal, it's exactly the same thing that we use at IBM to do our training. And this includes the tech zone environment, which is you can spin up an environment for all three of these solutions as a Fusion one, a Scale one, a Ceph one. So if you want to play with it without actually implementing it, like I say, Ingram's going to have that Fusion environment before too much longer. So I'm sure they'll be more than happy to work with you if you want to mess around with Fusion once we've got that up and running. But tons and tons of assets. So one pagers and info, what do they call that? Info, come on, what's the word I'm looking for? Info sheets or whatever they call it. I mean, you guys probably know. Certainly full on seller decks and client decks and technical decks and videos and all those things in one place. Everything you have access to is the same thing we do. So there's one for Scale, one for, there is a Scale monthly call. If you want to register for that, you can. Once again, this deck will be out there. You'll be able to get to all these links yourself. So don't be writing things down or screenshotting things. We'll get you this probably by end of day. Ceph sales kit, and same story here. And then the same thing for Fusion. Lots and lots and lots of information and lots and lots and lots of help out there. Don't feel like you have to go it alone if you uncover an opportunity, any opportunity, AI or otherwise, for any of these solutions. We're here to help. Right. That's about all I've got. Questions in the queue, or come off of mute and ask a question if you like.
So there was a question in the chat about how Ceph as a service compared to on-prem Ceph, and I attempted to cover it with, the value prop of the monthly billing, right? There's no capital investment. You get that health monitoring from IBM. You get that cloud-like UI well, we didn't see it today's demo, but I've seen it before.
Yep.
Very slick. Um, Anything else that you can compare and contrast? I guess skills too, right? Not needing the
Yeah,
skills.
exactly. Right. You don't have to have that ability. You don't, and mostly it's just the delivery model from a licensing pricing perspective, because the administrative elements of it, the day-to-day stuff that you need to interact with on Ceph is going to be the same, and the stuff that you don't need to be interacting with, like we need to put the next version out there, you don't have to do it because IBM is going to do it for you. As far as how I will interact with it day to day, as far as I'm creating a cluster and I'm using that data against application X, it's going to be the same. But that was a good answer, Mark. You're right.
Anybody else have any questions? Want to come off of mute?
I mean, this can be a
Feedback?
little daunting, and I know it. If it's not your warm and fuzzies, but I hope what you've got from this, if you're an infrastructure seller, is that the path to get there is different maybe than what we're comfortable with. But the truth of the matter is once we become a real part of the conversation, we're right back in our own kitchen. We're talking about resilience. We're talking about performance. We're talking about capacity. We're talking about collaboration. We're talking about all the things that we're warm and fuzzy talking about. It's just that we had to get there through that AI or that otherwise containerized prism to get to that conversation. What I think what you're going to find is once you go through a couple of iterations of this, if you haven't already, and you hear the common questions that folks have in these various spaces, you're going to get really comfortable with it that, hey, I can handle this. I may not know every answer to every question, but I know where to get the answers. And eventually when it gets to me and the question is storage, I'm right back where I'm comfortable. And that's all I've got for you guys today.
Okay. Thank you very much, Doug. If there's no more questions, I'm going to go ahead and close it out. The replay and the deck will be available shortly after our session is concluded. So once again, thanks very much for joining us today, and I hope you have a great one.
Thanks, everyone.